Testing, testing, one, two, three. I'm live. All right, let me set up this live stream. Press one if you can hear me. Can you hear me running? Can you hear me running? Can you hear me calling you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me running? Can you hear me running? Can you hear me calling you? All right, where are we at? Here we go.
Like this in the 90s. There was enough food to feed a family.
Oh, y'all here. Hey, can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me?
Midnight, it was all.
Hey, everyone, I'm back. Okay, I'm kind of in a goofy mood, even though this topic tonight is about something serious. So I'm gonna have to get this goofiness out of me first before I get into the main topic. But y'all see the main topic. I don't know if you can see the thumbnail that I just added, but like I said, we're gonna be taking a ride on the dark side, and we're gonna be talking about a couple of current events, tragic events. Let's see who we got in here. Hey, Red Bunny. Hey, November Nicole. Hey, Alexander. What's up? We got Thule. Hey, Thule. Hey, Maurice. Hey, Rassie. Hey, Lilith. What's up, Lilith? Hey, Tyrell. I know it's been a while. This first part of this year has been really hectic. Me moving. I had some other things going on, but now I'm starting to like really get into the swing of things and kind of get settled. So look forward to some more videos on a more consistent basis coming soon, especially in May. Hey, Abu. Hey, Majestic. Hey, Awkward Letter. You like my AI cartoon? Oh yeah, I told ChatGPT, I said put me on a ninja bike with a leather outfit, no helmet. That's what I said, and that's what it came up with. Although I'm not really, too keen on all this AI stuff, I have to admit ChatGPT is pretty dope. When you want to use it constructively, I'll say. Oh man, and I use ChatGPT for the thumbnail. So what did I tell ChatGPT? I said, um, create an image where I'm wearing like a business suit with my arms crossed and where I have a serious look. I think that's what I put because this is a serious topic of discussion tonight. Hey, Water Minx, how you doing? But again, before we get into the main topic, I just want to see how everybody's doing. How is life treating y'all? Happy Taurus season. I know I really wasn't present during Aries season, but I don't think Aries really, mind too much. Somebody did ask me to do like go over like the dark side of Aries again because they said that my dark side of Aries male video was a bit too brief. I think you were talking about the um Aries male video, but Aries, it's not really that complicated when it comes to, the dark side. It's pretty straightforward, being selfish, having a violent streak, conflict oriented, uh lacking staying power. So those are some of the dark side. Hey Kawaii, how you doing? Your video, I got a video that I'm working on. Is yours is gonna be next. Yeah. It's been so far with the research I've had to do, it's been kind of what's the word? Um Overwhelming, should I say, with some of these people that I gotta research for this sponsor video that I'm gonna be doing. But yeah, it's just interesting. So I'm going to be like for my research I'm going to be watching some videos and watching some interviews and stuff like that to just gather up a bunch of data. And I'm going to do like I did with the serial killer video. I'm going to create a spreadsheet where I'm basically creating a tally of who has what and all of that. So stay tuned for that. And then what else? What else did I want to tell you guys before I get into this main topic? Oh, y'all heard about the situation with the 8 kids being murdered by the father? I don't know if they were all of his children. I think 7 of them were his, but that story is kind of along the lines of what I'm going to be talking about tonight, but I'm not going to be covering this guy. But if anybody has his birthday, please post it in the chat right now or just send it to me, or you could post it in the comments because I haven't looked it up yet. But to save me time and energy, if anybody happens to know that monster's birthday, please let me know because I would love to do a reading on that fool. And I'm not buying the whole line like, oh, he was just going through it. He got mental health issues and stuff like that. Like me and one of my students was saying, we were like, nah, he's just evil. He's just evil. He's bitter. And because he couldn't get his what? Oh, shit. December 7th, he's a Sagittarius. Well, that does explain why he went overboard. Damn. This motherfucker gotta be a Sagittarius. Ugh. Oh, man. December 7th, 1994. Thank you. Let me write this down. Lord Jesus. Now, is he from the islands or from Africa or something? He don't look like a Native American. Or you know what I mean? And what would you say, an indigenous American? Or he don't look like an FBA. That's all I'm saying. Is he from the islands or from Africa or something? He might be with that 7 birth number and Sagittarius. All I know is I saw a picture of him. He looked crazy as cat shit. Thule said he got a lot of Scorpio in his chart. Well, of course, because while Sagittarius can have like uncontrollable anger and can like have these horrible temper, the murder part sometimes, well, a lot of times when murder is involved, it's going to be some Scorpio in the mix. So I'm not surprised. So he's from Texas or something. Yeah, he's a weird looking dude. And I'm like, how did women like look at him and be like, okay, he looked like somebody that will be a good father to my children. Sometimes you can tell a book by its cover. Yeah, Kawaii, she's one of the ones I'm going to be covering tonight, Serena, which is another story, but I'll get on that in a minute. But it's getting to the point, y'all, like where it's going to be very hard to trust anybody. And like I always say, in these modern days and times, you have to adjust for inflation, meaning the squares that people had in their charts, like in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, the same squares like other people had back in the day, they're going to be more pronounced. They're going to be more intensified simply because of the type of society we live in and because of the conditions that we live in as well. Hey, Pisces Moon. Hey, Daniel. But yet, in these modern days and times, you got to adjust for inflation. So when you see a certain aspect in a chart, case in point, like Venus square Pluto, you really got to take that shit seriously because that could cost you your life. I'm sorry, Red Bunny. But you know how it go. And this is why you can't take shit seriously. Because we know Scorpio is the sign of crime, it's the sign of death, it's the sign of murder, it's the sign of a lot of gruesome shit. So, of course, when we're dealing with gruesome stories, a lot of times Scorpio is going to be one of the dominant signs that is present. And that's just the way it is. Same as if you're talking about somebody that's an arsonist, somebody that's a pyromaniac, they like to start fires and stuff. They're going to have a lot of energy in Aries. They might be a Aries rising, or they might have Mars in Aries, or have Sun conjunct Mars in Aries, and that's just the way it is. Somebody that is like a hardcore drug addict or a drunk, more than likely they're going to have some dominant energy in Pisces. That's just the way it is. So all of the signs have their loser traits and loser qualities where where you could be a real low life. It don't matter what the sun sign is. Each of those signs have an evil side, dark side, which I like to specialize in because I feel like not enough uh information is put out there about the dark side. And people tell me this all the time. People be like, nobody be breaking it down like you do. And it's because I'm not afraid to talk about the ugly side of life. Namely because I dealt with a lot of the ugly side of life. So a lot of what people go through, some of what, some of it I can relate to. And I've just always been that type of person that's been into psychology and like been into like learning about different mental health disorders and personality disorders and all that. So what better way to help people than to help them or teach them how to avoid certain people in certain situations so that your life can run smoother? Because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. But that brings me to this question, and I always have this question: how much of life is really fated? Because you can do everything in your power to try to have a pretty stress-free life. You could try your best to do everything right, and then bullshit will still happen to you. So sometimes I really wonder, like, how much free will do we really have? How much is life really fated? Especially when you think about situations like what has occurred recently with these women being victims of their own husbands, their own lovers. There's been several stories out recently about women losing their lives at the hands of the men that they love or the men that claim to love them. But we know that love and marriage don't always go hand in hand, right? That's why love, that's Leo's domain, fifth house domain, and relationship and marriage, that's that seventh house Libra domain. Don't get it twisted. Libra is not about love, it's about partnership. And you could be in a partnership but not love that person. That's why Libra is also the sign of enemies. Who's your partner or spouse one day could very well be your enemy the next. This is why you got to be very careful of who you choose to partner up with, especially if you have certain things in the chart. Now, some of y'all remember I put out a video series a few years ago where I was talking about red flags and deal breakers when it came to men in particular. But even, men and also lesbians, when it comes to women, there's some red flags to look for as well. But men in particular, I feel that we really need to educate ourselves on, what the astrological makeup could be of some of these men that are likely to commit these horrible acts against women. Another news story that has come out as of late is about I don't know if I should say the word, but the R, people will say grape instead of the R word, but there's this grape academy that has been exposed where it's a bunch of married men basically trying to learn how to grape their wives. It's some real sick shit going on right now, but a lot of it has to do with Pluto and Aquarius. Now, there's always been, sickos in the world, but Pluto and Aquarius, number one, is bringing them more out into the open. It's like exposing a lot of perverts, and it's also creating a lot of perversion, period, where people feel like they might even be empowered by being a pervert. I see it all the time on Instagram now. I don't scroll too much on TikTok, but I do most of my scrolling on Instagram. I bet you if I open up my Instagram right now, probably after like maybe the third swipe, I'm going to see some ratchet shit. But men and women nowadays. Well, I told you ratchet. Nah, this is old. Okay, wait.
Or saying my kid is stupid. Trying to say that he has unique neurological or cognitive challenges that may require specialized support. You hear?
No, but what did I see the other day? It was some woman and she came outside. She was a big girl too. And I think she was just wearing like a thong or something. And like it was like broad daylight and she walking around like it was just like normal and shit. But you're starting to see more of these perverts become emboldened with Pluto and Aquarius. And also apathy too, where people just don't give a crap no more. People are just indifferent. People are just like, I don't care. So that type of energy is greatly contributing to people just losing it and snapping. Hey DSIs, how you doing? So you said yes, it's an online site, over 62 million visits in a month. That's sick. And a lot of these men that are married going on this site, y'all might know some of them. Some of them might, you might be co-workers with one of them. It might be the dude that delivers your Amazon packages. It might be one of your kids' teachers. That's really horrific. Those horrible thought. It might be your doctor. It might be the postman. It might be your brother. It might be your father belonging to these sick groups. Because where are these 62 million men coming from? Or, these 62 million views. Come on, some of these gotta be quote unquote average everyday type of men. Yes, Tuli, we gotta bring back shame. It's getting really bad out here. Oh, this part. Yeah, yeah. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Look, I'm going to go to my Instagram right now before I get into the main topic, and we're going to share some of these reels real quick because I just told y'all I was about to see some ratchet stuff, probably about after scrolling for like four times or, swiping four times. And sure enough, let me show you this. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If I could even get back in my Instagram, because last time I tried to sign in, it was like, that's not your password. I was like, oh. Okay, let's see. I don't think that's my password. Oh, maybe it is. Oh, it said check your text messages. Okay. Yeah, y'all gotta see this. Wait, I didn't get a text message. Wait, where's the code at? She said got it. Okay. Yeah, they said check your text messages. I didn't even get anything. Okay, let me see how I can. Yeah, that's not even my phone number. What are they talking about? Okay, let's go back. Close. What's this? That gotta be it. Hold on, y'all. Because I want to show y'all this because it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. No, I'm not a robot. These sign in steps I know is for our security, but I'm just like, come on. Continue. Like, y'all be doing way too much sometimes. Especially when it's the same computer you've been signing in on. Oh, hell nah. They're trying to send it to an old ass email address I don't even use. I can't even do it right now. Man, screw Instagram. No, I can't. So basically, I can't even get back in my Instagram right now. That's messed up. And then, oh my God, now it says we blocked a suspicious login attempt. That's me. Look, okay, that this was me trying to log in, fools. That's what I mean, though. Like y'all going too much. Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to show y'all was it's this little it's like a cartoon of this woman and this man, and it's basically a blind date, and she asks him a question, and because he can't really answer right, he just decides to pull out his gun and blast her. Like, and I'm like, that's the mentality. Yeah, that's to the extreme. It's exaggerated, but that's the mentality that a lot of these men have nowadays. Like, they feel like if shit gets too complicated with women, then violence is the next step. And I'm like, wow. Jupiter going wild said, Rabina, don't feel bad. My Facebook page logged me out. I won't reactivate it. I love living offline. Yeah, I can still access my Instagram on my phone, but I was trying to pull it up on my laptop so I could share my screen, and it's not allowing me to do that. But anyway, but yeah. Hey, XY Yummy or X Yummy Vampire X. But yeah, it's getting bad out here, and a big part of that Pluto and Aquarius is entitlement. You know, Aquarius is a sign of entitlement, and Pluto is where, oh, if I don't get what I want, I'm gonna kill you type energy. And it's like, or I'm gonna force my way in. So hence the whole Grape Academy. And again, it's empowering the perverts, that Pluto and Aquarius. But I digress. I mean, actually, I don't, because this is all part of tonight's topic. But let me share my screen. We're going to get into this situation now. There was something else that happened in the news, too. I'm trying to think. Another big story. Those damn astronauts. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that they were orbiting the moon or whatever the hell they tried to say they were doing. Oh my God, like get out of my way. Okay. Oh wow, this shit is fast now that I got this new laptop. This is amazing. I think this is my first time going live since I got a new laptop. Oh my God, look at it. Okay. All right, let me just pull up the live stream on my phone. Sag Rising 19 said, it's definitely getting scary out here seeing women and children getting killed. Yeah, and these men are doing it with impunity. I always want an excuse to use that word impunity. These men are killing women and children with impunity. Like it's getting crazy out here. And I'm going to tell you part of the issue. I'm going to tell you what part of the issue is. And like I said, Pluto and Aquarius is bringing the nutcases out, it's bringing the perverts out, and also the nutcases. So, because we live in a society, hey Roma, because we live in a society where men now have to keep a lot of their barbaric tendencies under wraps, like more than ever before. And they really have to kind of be like, well, they're encouraged to be more on the beta male side. A lot of men have been able to assume that role, but it's not who they really are. So they're basically faking the funk. They're living a lie. They're trying to act like they're these upstanding, sensitive men, but they're really not. But when I say sensitive, I mean sensitive towards, women. they are sensitive men, meaning like they're very emotionally sensitive when it comes to themselves, but I'm talking about emotionally sensitive towards women and children. They're playing, a lot of these men are playing that role because that's what society expects of them at this point. That's the only way they can fit in and be productive members of society and be able to earn some money and get married and all that type of stuff. But when you peel back a couple of layers, you see that we're dealing with some straight up demons in the flesh. And after a while, they can't hold it together no more. That's why this fool right here said I couldn't take it no more. Hey, Jules. Hey, Jules, I haven't seen you in a minute. What's up? Jules said too much soy. That has a lot to do with it, yes. Jupiter said the low vibrational men behave like Franklin from Disappearing Acts, dusty, trifling, low down. Yes. And God forbid they get with a woman that is smarter than them, that is more successful, that earns more money, that can basically, bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan and then take care of the kids and then take care of her man. Yeah, men like this dude, after a while, they break because they can't handle it. It's killing them inside that the woman is outdoing them in all areas. So, yeah, this story is a cautionary tale about age difference in particular, and why it matters when it comes to synastry. Synastry is basically when you put two charts together and you look at the interplay between the planets in the charts, and you're able to see how the relationship is going to play out. Now, one of the things that I always say when it comes to synastry, age difference matters. Because if you have certain aspects in your chart, for instance, let's say you have Sun square Pluto, and then you get with someone who is the same age as you, or maybe they were born a year before or a year after you. We can even stretch it to 2 years when we're talking about Pluto, even 3 years when we're talking about Pluto. Then their Pluto is going to square your sun. So, what happens with that is that Sun square Pluto in the natal chart, the person that they get with that has their Pluto square in their sun, they're stepping right into that role of Pluto. And they're activating that square in that person's chart that has it natally. And I always say, why would you want to double up on negativity? Now, I'm a perfect example because all of the men that I dealt with, and it hasn't been a lot, I'm talking about like serious relationships. The ones I dealt with that were my age, all abusive towards me in some way, shape, or form. They were all abusive. And that's because their Pluto was squaring my moon and ascendant because I wasn't choosing wisely when it came to, getting with men back in the day. I didn't understand when I was dealing with these men about doubling up on these challenging aspects. And again, that person is going to come into your life with that square that's being replicated through the relationship. And usually it's going to play out in the worst way, in a more intense way than it's doing to you on your own when you're just dealing with your own square in your natal chart. And when we're talking about aspects involving the sun and Mars for women, and also this includes gay men as well, you have to be careful because the sun and Mars represents men. So if you have, for instance, like I said, Sun square Pluto, you have to know that you're going to attract men that are going to represent that Sun square Pluto in your chart. Same as if you have like Mars square Uranus or Mars square Neptune, you're going to attract men that are basically representing that square in your chart. Now, that's something that you just can't get away from. That's if you insist upon dealing with men. So ideally, in a perfect world, if you knew you had like Mars square Pluto or Mars square Neptune or Mars square Uranus, you just wouldn't deal with men at all, or maybe you would deal with them at an arm's length, because again, especially in these modern days and times, why take that risk? You might have been able to be okay back in the day when men weren't so unhinged, but even when we go back in the day, men were unhinged before they really became more genteel. I'll say men started to become more genteel probably starting in like the 1700s. Before that, men were very barbaric. And in some cases, in some parts of the world, they still are very barbaric. And I do feel like a lot of men, or just collectively, men are regressing. But you could say the same thing about women collectively, that, well, no, I can't even say that collectively about women, because a lot of women are waking up and they're starting to really come to the realization that being with a man is not the end all be all. But there is a segment of women that does seem to be regressing, but I'll just say there's a segment of humanity, period, that seems to be regressing instead of evolving, which is scary because they're basically regressing to that barbaric state where they don't talk things out. They don't try to be diplomatic. They don't, try to not offend people. They become very animalistic. All right, so the Bowens, deadly synastry, why age difference matters. So when I heard about this story, it really, affected me because I've been following stories like this for years about husbands killing wives. And it's been happening for years. Hey, RDK approved. Thank you for your super chat. You said, what's up with those born in 1979? Justin Fairfax, Andrew Gillum, my husband, they are way up. What's up? Worry this. Well, it's not just 1979. I mean, it's going to be a number of factors, but we'll take a look at Justin Fairfax chart because they are Justin and Serena are the other couple that I'm going to be talking about, and we'll look at that 1979 chart and see what's up in there. Lil said, I was promised my Andrew 3000 in the year of 2020, and I'm still waiting. But see, those Andre 3000s, a lot of them are crazy. You gotta be careful of these guys that come across as very eccentric. Case in point, one of those eccentric guys recently passed away, and I did a video on him years ago. I think back in 2016, Africa Bambaataa, when it came out that he was molesting young boys back in the day, and not even that back in the day, because I think it was something more recent. He died recently, and he was one of those eccentric individuals. That's one thing you gotta be careful of. And I'm not saying all eccentric men are sus, but a lot of them are. And when I say sus, I'm not talking about sus in terms of being gay. I'm talking about sus in terms of being deviant in some way. Like, yeah, you into some like sick, twisted shit. Like, know who makes me think of that? Who's that dude? He used to play football, and now he has his own podcast, and he always dressed weird and stuff. He's real eccentric. Y'all help me out. I know y'all know who I'm talking about. Who's that dude? He's very annoying, and he's always wears glasses. He recently interviewed who did he recently interview, and he was giving her a hard time. Oh, Kendra G. Who's that dude? Oh, please, somebody tell me. He's an ex-football player, and he has a podcast. Hey, 12 Red Hot Fire. He has a podcast. Cam Newton. Thank you, Essie. I feel like there's something up with that Cam Newton because he's too eccentric. You gotta be careful. The matter of fact, what's his birthday? Let me look. What is this Cam Newton's birthday? Okay, let's see where he at. I knew it. I was about to say, because if he a Taurus, I was about to say if he a Taurus, then he really sucks. Because when you got eccentric Taurus like that, that means their sun is jacked up more than likely. Let me just so he's May 11th. Let me see if I could get his birth time real quick. Hey Essie, how you doing? All right, let's see. I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't trust him. 5/11, 1989. I don't want it. It's tainted. Oh, he got Sun opposition Pluto. That makes a lot of sense. That's that dark corridor of sex and intrigue and and then what else? Yeah, I'm gonna have to get into his chart later. He got Venus at the 0 degree of Gemini. Quincunx, no, Mars in Cancer. Oh, that Mars in Cancer, opposing Saturn and Neptune and Uranus. Oh, that's why he's so out there like that. I think he likes to get beat. I'll just say that. That's one of his kinks, I think. Oh, Mac's in here. Hey, Mac. He's a cornet too. Sierra said he gives me the ick. I don't like him at all. Me neither. Sag Rising said Cam is narcissistic too. He is annoying. Yeah, you could tell he got an overblown ego. All right, let's get into this story about the Bowens because this situation had me really like I was just like, wow, okay. So, in cold blood, first I'm going to go through the story real quick. So, the vice mayor of a Florida town known for her dedication to environmentalism was found dead inside her home on Wednesday. Her husband has been arrested on suspicion of premeditated murder, police confirmed. The body of Nancy Mateer Bowen, 38, the vice mayor of Coral Springs, a town in the metropolitan Miami area, was discovered by officers conducting a wellness check at her home. City officials said during a press conference at Coral Springs City Hall on Wednesday. Police said her death appeared to be the result of a domestic incident and that her husband, Stephen Bowen, was in custody. There were no additional suspects, officials said. He is accused of shooting Mateer Bowen and was taken into custody after police attended the couple's home after concerned city officials contacted authorities to alert them that their colleague had missed work meetings and was not replying to messages. So the fact that he killed his wife, who was such a high profile politician, it just shows that he didn't care about really being caught. Like he was just at the point of no return. He didn't even, I don't even think he really thought long term about this. Now, according to the affidavit, a SWAT team found her body wrapped in blankets with 3 used shotgun shells. So he shot her 3 times with a shotgun? Like, that's overkill. A preliminary examination showed an apparent shotgun wound to Mateer Bowen's left shoulder, it said. Or maybe he missed 2 times. The affidavit indicates that officers also spoke with the person who said Bowen told him he shot Mateer Bowen 3 times with a shotgun the previous night and then slept downstairs. That's the craziest part. That he shot his wife to death and then he just goes downstairs and goes to bed. Like nothing happened. Like, how can you sleep after doing something like that? That just shows you, we're dealing with someone who is very unhinged. Now, investigators also observed a pillow on the bed where Mateo Bowen had been lying with burn marks and a string as if it were fashioned as a makeshift silencer, the affidavit states. Her husband is facing premeditated murder and tampering with evidence charges, the document says. On Wednesday, April 1st, 2026, at approximately 10:04 a.m., the Coral Springs Police Department initiated an investigation into the well-being of Vice Mayor Nancy Mateer Bowen. Officers with the Coral Springs Police Department responded to her residence, located at the 800 block of Northwest 127th Avenue, Coral Springs, Florida. Upon arrival, officers discovered a deceased black female victim within the residence and positively identified her as Vice Mayor Nancy Mateer Bowen. Through the preliminary investigation, it was determined the incident was domestic in nature and the husband, Stephen Bowen, Date of birth, September 6th, 1985, is in police custody. Mind you, these are two Virgos. At this time, there are no additional suspects being sought or threat to the community. The Coral Springs Police Department Crimes Against Persons Unit is actively investigating the incident and encourages anyone with information regarding this incident to contact blah, 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 blah. All right, so first let's get into Nancy's chart. So she was born September 4th, 1987, and she died when she was 38 years old. And she has some key indicators of being in a dysfunctional relationship with a man. Namely, her Sun and Venus and Mars are squaring Saturn. That has a lot to do with it. And then she also has Neptune squaring her Libra South Node and Aries North Node. You know, when I see one of my clients with a Libra South Node, I always do caution them about being in relationships, but mainly about making a relationship the end all be all, or putting too much in a marriage, or investing too much in a partner or spouse, because that's not what you need to do in this lifetime. In this lifetime, you need to be more focused on yourself, which she was to a large extent, and that is a large reason why he took her out, because she was very focused on her own individual growth. And he felt like her growth was at his expense, which is really sick. My thing is, if you can't stand your wife, how do you still justify killing her? And especially in the manner that you did? Like, what could she have possibly done? What could she have possibly said to you to make you think, I'm gonna get my shotgun and I'm gonna blast her ass while she sleep? Really? Like, what could she have done to you to cause you to take such an extreme measure, and especially do it while she sleep in the most cowardly way possible? And again, he's saying, I couldn't take it no more, which is so Virgo. And honestly, when he did say I couldn't take it anymore, I could kind of understand. Not saying I'm defending this man, I'm not at all. But I do understand how Virgo can get to a point where the stress is unbearable. And with them both being Virgos, I could just imagine there was probably this constant bickering back and forth, constant hurling of insults, constant denigrations, and you ain't this and you ain't doing this right and all this type of stuff. And I'm saying on both sides. I'm sure she was dishing it out and he was dishing it out back and forth. Because one thing about Virgo, the dark side of Virgo, will be a big time fault finder, complainer, nitpicker, nag, and won't shut up. Will just keep on and on until you feel like you're about to go crazy. So again, I'm not defending him at all, but when he said I couldn't take it anymore, and then I found out that they were both Virgos, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And you know what they say, stress can be a killer. All right, so Nancy had this mutable square in her chart, and this mutable square is involving her Venus, Sun, and Mars in Virgo squaring Saturn in Sagittarius. Now, remember what I said when it comes to the Sun and Mars in a woman's chart or a gay man's chart, that's representing the type of man that they're going to attract in their life. So, just off of the rip, her having this square is showing that she is liable to attract a man that's going to give her some serious challenges. So, this square right here, involving this Virgo stellium and Saturn and Sagittarius, can represent a husband who struggles to break free from his position of submission. With this Sun, Mars, Virgo, I mean, Sun, Mars, and Virgo, Venus, and Virgo, This is where she wants a man that is going to be her helpmate. That's going to kind of be like her personal assistant. That's going to kind of be, somewhat subservient to her. Because again, remember, the sun and Mars is dealing with the type of man she can attract. A man who is afraid of his woman's growth. So that's also what this square can represent. Her political career, which is represented by her Saturn and Sagittarius, trigger his insecurities. Basically, this is representing a husband that could feel degraded and belittled. And maybe where she didn't do it directly, but just the simple fact that she's the vice mayor. She was about to run for Congress, I believe. So she's on her way up. And yeah, he knows that he can come with her, but it doesn't feel the same when he's in the passenger seat and she's constantly in the driver's seat. So basically, this shows that he was relegated to the servant or helpmate role while she's basically expanding in terms of her career path. Or you could just say, just because she's getting recognition in the world of politics. Also, this square is representative of Nancy's career, making it hard for her to be attentive and consistent in her marriage. So, with this Virgo energy, Virgo is the sign of being attentive, it's the sign of consistency. So, with the Sun and Mars in Virgo alone, you could throw Venus in there too. That's where her mate is expecting her to be consistent and attentive. And it could even show that, they need to check in with each other on the regular multiple times a day. But with this square, more than likely there was plenty of times where she wasn't checking in with him, where, she had to, maybe she was in long meetings or whatever, and next thing you know, he's starting to really feel insecure. Sun square Saturn alone can produce a life that is fraught with restrictions, limitations, controls, degradation, and punishment. And again, this could be true for her life, but it might apply to her husband's life even more because the sun is representing her husband. So again, think about this sun square Saturn. This could represent a husband that feels restricted. He feels limited. He feels like he's under control or he's under her thumb, you could say. He feels degraded and he's facing punishment when he doesn't do what he's expected to do. She could have made jokes at his expense. Also, she could have ridiculed him. The reason why I'm saying jokes and ridicule is because of that Saturn and Sagittarius. But again, she doesn't even really have to do it in a blatant way for him to always feel like, oh, I'm less than, or I'm, this servant. I'm just relegated to this servant role. Also, this square, after a while, Saturn's going to win out. Meaning, if we just assign this square to her husband, eventually that Saturn's going to win out where he's going to try to break free. But he did it in a way that, was just totally absurd. His way of breaking free. Also, Sun square Saturn alone and also Mars square Saturn can make it easy for her to attract mean, cruel, devilish, sadistic, and opportunistic men. And I believe that Stephen Bowen was all of that. Bowen, what is it? How do you pronounce Bowen? I'm going to say Bowen. Now, Nancy could have had a Thor's hammer in her chart, and I think she did. So if her moon is in the late degrees of Capricorn, which I believe it was, she would have this Thor's hammer in her chart involving Venus and the Sun in Virgo, forming a sesqui-square with Jupiter in Aries, and then that moon forming a sesqui-square with Jupiter in Aries. I mean, not Jupiter, Aries, that Venus, Sun, and Virgo. So this represents Nancy outgrowing her husband in an outlandish way. Like she became light years ahead of him in terms of her accomplishments, in terms of her career. And after a while, he couldn't handle it. Her clout and rapid growth interfered with her marriage in a major way. Represents her murder, especially in terms of it being overkill. This sesqui square involving Jupiter and Aries is representative of being hit multiple times with a shotgun. So that's why I do believe that that moon is in the late degrees of Capricorn. And especially she was working for government, being very successful, very much about getting recognition. That's very moon in Capricorn. Now, T square nightmare. So she had a T square in her chart involving Mercury and Virgo, squaring her Uranus, and Mercury was also squaring Chiron. Chiron was opposing Uranus. So this square can manifest as mental instability and where it's easy to switch up on people. Now, I'm not saying she was dealing with like some mental illness, but she could have been a little touched. I'm just saying. But what this square can also represent is that her schedule always changes. It's hard to pin her down. It's hard to get her to be consistent, but that makes sense. She's a politician, a vice mayor. She's being pulled in different directions. So she's the type of person where she'll say she'll be somewhere at a certain time and then don't show up. Hey Tara, how you doing? And I think I saw Siobhan in here today. Hey, Siobhan. Um, but yes, she's the type of person that might say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be here at 7 p.m.," but don't show up until 9. But that could be, "Oh, I was running late because a meeting ran over longer than what it should." But for a Virgo man, right? Can't you see how this could drive a Virgo man crazy? So keep that in mind. Words that create division, upset, and discord. So some people with this square, they may say things that offends others and they may not realize what they're saying is going to offend others until it's said and people call them out on it. But this square can often produce division and dissension, and it can cause her to say some shocking and appalling things at times, and it can make her prone to throwing things perhaps when she gets upset. Then she has Mercury and Virgo square Chiron and Gemini. Again, this is another square where schedules, appointments, and routines are always subject to change without warning. So again, this can make it hard on a marriage. And this could be true with anybody. Like if you are married to someone and they're constantly on the go, you can't really pin them down. Like they always got appointments to go to and y'all trying to go out to dinner together, but then she getting calls on her phone talking about, "Oh, we need you to go over this. We need you to, sign this. And what about this?" and stuff like that. Her personal assistant always calling her and stuff like that. Can you imagine for a husband that's not successful like her to always feel like he's on the sidelines? And I'm not saying all this to defend him at all. I'm just trying to paint the picture with how, her life basically was with these aspects. And this is another square where she could go back on her word. But again, maybe not intentionally, maybe because again, she don't know how the wind's going to blow at any given point, and she just has to go with it because of her high profile career. This can play out as mental stress and volatility, but also where verbal tirades are hurled, a lot of bickering, fault finding, and hurling insults. And then we got this opposition, Uranus and Sagittarius opposing Chiron and Gemini. And this could just make it hard to just focus on what is right in front of you because you always got things on your agenda. It can make it hard to just be in the here and now. So this T square, I believe, contributed to the stressors in their marriage. But again, this is nowhere near an excuse to take somebody's life. Now, I wanted to read this, but I can barely see what this says. I think it says, "Mommy, Daddy, we know your hearts." Something call our what? So aching quiet ways. I don't know where this is from. I just saw this and I was like, let me just copy this down. Now, some pictures of him, he looked like kind of dusty, like in this picture, but then there's other pictures of him. I'll just say this, it looked like she upgraded him. So that's another factor that comes into play. Like she probably, made him look more polished. He had some fresh clothes, fresh gear, putting money in his pocket all the time. And he was cool with it for years until it got to be too much. So Neptune and Capricorn square Libra South Node and Aries North Node. Whenever you have a planet squaring the nodes, a lot of times it's going to produce a ugly, ugly situation. And sometimes what happens is it could play out as karmic induced situations that occur through an outside force. Or it could just represent, like in this case, her devotion to a career was basically a threat to her marriage, but also to her personal life as well. So her devotion to her career took away from her ability to be fully present in her marriage, and it left little time for herself. So herself is represented by the Aries North Node. Her marriage is represented by that Libra South Node. Her being devoted to her career, that's Neptune and Capricorn. And that could even deal with, there could have been nights where, she'd maybe coming home late, not even sleeping enough and all this type of stuff. Now, being neglectful of a partner, but also herself due to career. A marriage that is illusory and based upon reputation or opportunism. So, with this square, it would have been very hard for her to have a normal marriage, regardless of who she married, because this square wasn't going to go away. So if she wanted to, be this career woman, which she was, if she wanted to, really make it to the top, then her marriage, more than likely, and again, it doesn't matter who she would have married, would have suffered to a large degree simply because of this square. And again, her personal life would suffer as well because of this square. And again, this square she basically carried with her entire life. So this just shows that she was kind of set up to fail in the area of marriage. Now, dissolution of marriage and the self. This is the sad part. So this is what I mean about how squares to the nodes from a planet, especially a heavy planet like Neptune, can play out in a really tragic way. So Neptune is the dissolution. Dissolution of marriage, Neptune square Libra South Node, but also dissolution of the self. And in this case, in the worst way, where basically she was taken out of here simply because her no good husband couldn't take it anymore. Now let's get into Stephen's chart. So Stephen was born just 2 days after Nancy, but he was born 2 years before. But remember, I said that 2 year mark is not enough time in terms of age difference to really put Nancy in the clear with respect to some of her aspects in her chart. So Steve's chart, deviant T square. And again, this looked like a younger picture of him. He was looking a little dusty. So I believe she basically upgraded his ass. She made him look more polished. I mean, look at them lips, like ashy ass lips. But anyway, he had Sun in Virgo, square Chiron and Gemini. I told y'all about this square. In my red flags and deal breakers video series, I think this was the first square I talked about when it comes to men and what to look out for and what to avoid. This is a deal breaker aspect. It's a red flag, but even more so, it's a deal breaker. Sag Rising said dusty and sassy. Exactly. Look at them pursed lips. And he got that little twinkle in the eye. He got the little stardust in the eye. Yes, he does. Okay, but I told y'all about Sun Square Chiron and how it can produce men who are deviant. And I said that should be a red flag, but also even more a deal breaker. Don't even deal with dudes that got Sun Square Chiron. Don't even deal. I don't care what type of story he tells to make him seem like he's normal. Just don't deal with him. Because you're probably going to end up with some clown like this. So, deviant, unhinged, perverse. And I basically look at Sun Square Chiron dudes as freaks of nature. They can try to play the role like they're normal, but just stick around long enough and you'll start to see that they're not normal. And I think Nancy started to really see how crazy he was. And I think she started calling him out on it, amongst other things she was calling him out on. And again, that's why he was saying he couldn't take it no more because his cover was blown. Exactly, Alexander. A lot of Virgo men be on the DL. Yes, they do. And this is someone that cannot be tamed. And when I say tamed, I'm speaking in particular about Virgo, that sun in Virgo, because Virgo is a sign about being tamed, about being subdued, about being trained. So this is somebody that is unable to be tamed, unable to be trained. So like I said, he was holding it together for years, trying to masquerade as a normal human being. But deep down inside, he could never be tamed. And she tried to tame him, especially being a Virgo herself. She tried to be that tamer of the beast, and it didn't work. It blew up in her face, literally. So, also, this produces someone who's inconsistent, disruptive of schedules, and I would say purposefully so. So again, he's the type of guy where finally they're able to have a night out, quiet night out for dinner and stuff. She was able to get some time off from her busy schedule. And then what does he do? He shows up late or he gives the waiter a hard time or he does something to ruin the night. So this is somebody where it's like, okay, you're just bent upon creating bad situations. You're bent upon making things difficult. Also, could be representative of living a double life because Chiron is in Gemini. And this is where my suspicion of him being bisexual comes into play. Not just this square, but the other square he's working with involving Uranus. So could be representative of living a double life. Now keep in mind that Virgo is the sign of the straight and narrow. So when you have a square involving Virgo, a lot of times you're not going to be on that straight and narrow. And especially if it's a square with Chiron, he couldn't be on the straight and narrow if he tried. So I believe that he was keeping a lot from her. And there would be times where she would basically put him on blast. She would catch him. And it probably got to a point where she really called him out on some stuff and he couldn't handle it no more. He couldn't even face her anymore. That's why he had to kill her while she was asleep. He has Sun in Virgo, squaring Uranus and Sagittarius. This can be somebody that lacks a sense of purpose. Maybe all he knows is how to be the understudy or the servant or the person that's the cleanup guy. But regardless, he's lacking a sense of purpose. He really doesn't have this strong sense of self, even. And this can represent someone who's disruptive, unreasonable, and too willful, and where he could be on the down low. I've seen Sun Square Uranus play out with men on the down low quite a bit. So that is a down low square. Again, Virgo is the sign of the straight and narrow. And you could take that literally, like straight. So when you have a square involving Virgo, especially like involving Uranus or Chiron, you're not more than likely going to be on the straight and narrow. That can mean that you got twists and turns and curves to you. You got an arch in your back. You got a twinkle in your eye. Now, this T square represents him snapping after a long period of playing the submissive role, like I said. So he was able to hold it down for a number of years until the stress got to be so much that he snapped. And this T square right here is representing him snapping, like he couldn't be submissive anymore. But again, we're dealing with someone who is not a strong individual, which is why he had to do her in while she was asleep. Again, he couldn't even fit. Probably if she was awake, he probably wouldn't even have the courage to pull the trigger. He had to do it while she was asleep. She probably would have been able to like just talk the gun down, like, you know what I mean? Because that just shows she had power over him, mental power. Now here he is all grown up, looking like Papa Smurf. So he had a grand cross in his chart with Venus and Leo squaring his north node in Taurus, south node in Scorpio, opposing Jupiter in Aquarius, with Jupiter squaring the nodes as well. It's that south node in Scorpio that made it easy for him to go down the dark path like this that led to murder. It was killing him that his woman was getting all the shine due to her leadership role. So that Venus in Leo is representing his woman being a leader, a boss, her getting all the shine, her basically being on center stage, her getting all the attention. Represents him murdering Nancy, including putting her in. Now, I thought they said she was in a trash bag, but they said she was wrapped in blankets, but still, he tried to discard her like she was useless. Now, Jupiter in Aquarius in this case enabled him to be totally indifferent towards Nancy's security and well being. That Aquarius can be deadly in that respect because it can produce this, especially when Jupiter is in Aquarius, it can produce this huge sense of apathy and indifference where he don't care nothing about her anymore. He's just looking at her like she's just a piece of furniture. Can be representative of a sexless marriage as well that he finds himself in because he'd rather be bent over instead of him doing the bending. Oh, so you doing the bending. You can see the twinkle in his eye right here too in this picture. Yup, he was jealous of that boss lady. He couldn't handle it no more. So he has Jupiter in Aquarius squaring Pluto in Scorpio. This represents his level of dependence that prevents him from being liberated. That's supposed to say that. But this just represents where he can't be liberated like he wants to be. You could substitute the word liberated for gay. He can't be gay like he wants to be because, you know, Aquarius, that's the sign of homosexuality. So this is showing he can't be gay like he wants to be because for whatever reason, it could be because of, you know, him being born in the 80s. He doesn't feel comfortable coming out the closet, living according to his true self. So this is an undercover aspect down low. But that Jupiter Aquarius is strong. So this means that every now and then she would see signs more than likely that, you know, he was a little tooty patootie in the booty, you know what I mean? So I'm sure she saw signs. She probably even caught him a few times. Now, this square can be indicative of being on the down low and in a major way, meaning being actively involved in the gay world to the point where it affects his sexual performance in his marriage. For instance, him finding it hard to get it up when he's with Nancy. And then he has Saturn and Scorpio contra parallel Hera, and this can represent a mean, jealous streak due to his wife being a VIP and where he's constantly keeping score. Now, here they are supposedly posing like a happy couple, but he looks kind of like he looked tense right here. He trying to hold it together, but he's on his last leg right here. Look like he ready for prison. So here's their synastry. Let me see something real quick. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, let me ask y'all something real quick. Okay, if y'all saw the movie Sinners, press one. If you didn't see the movie Sinners, press two. I want to see what y'all think about that movie. If you saw the movie Sinners, press one. If you didn't see it, press two. I'm gonna press one because I saw most of it. I don't know what made me think of that movie Sinners when I was looking at that dude's face. Hmm. Hmm. All right, Kawhi, you haven't seen it. Ken Cole, Saz Rising, Roman, you haven't seen it. Divine saw it. Love said she want to see it. Mickey, you saw it. What did y'all think about that movie? Essie, you haven't seen it. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. I tried two times to get through that movie and I couldn't watch the rest. Like it just wasn't interesting me. Like I was just like, but this movie it got nominated for so many Academy Awards and I think it did win some. But I didn't get it. Like I just didn't get it. It was weird to me. So Alexander, you loved it? Maybe you can break it down, like explain it. I even last for when like the showdown scene happened with the I don't want to give it away for those who haven't seen it. I'll tell you what I really didn't like about it. What was a big turnoff for me. If you noticed in that movie, there was a big emphasis on oral sex. Did y'all notice that? And even to the point where I was saying, I doubt people were talking like that back in the day. I don't even think people were going down on each other back in the day like that because the hygiene wasn't top notch back then. But maybe they didn't care. Maybe they liked shit to be a little tart and salty. But I didn't like that. Oh yeah, Delroy Lindo was in it. I didn't like the oral sex references, and I was just like, why? And then when Michael B. Jordan and his ex, I think that was his baby mama, like the baby that died or something, when they was getting it on in the dining room, I didn't like that scene either. I just don't like gratuitous sex scenes. I really don't. And you know me, I got a dirty mind a lot, but there's some things I'm just like, man, they could have left that part out. You said it was well seasoned. Yeah, if I was alive back in like the 20s or the 10s or like 1870, I don't think my mouth would have been on nobody's nether regions. I'm sorry, no. They didn't have enough soap back then. So they didn't have enough running water. They didn't have enough indoor plumbing for me. Mickey said it was all about eat or be eaten. And then when you just think about I don't know if y'all ever really like sat there and thought about that whole act of doing that. It's kind of silly when you think about it. And it's stuff that like that's stuff that chimpanzees do and like I don't even think gorillas get down like that, but I know chimpanzees they be getting it on and they be all different types of positions and stuff and they be having orgies and stuff. That's basically where humans got that type of behavior from. And trust me, I used to, get my freak on back in the day. But the older I get, the more, and especially like the longer I be celibate, the more I look at sex for what it really is, and I just be like, okay, this shit is like straight animalistic. But no, pull up a video of chimpanzees in the wild with their mating rituals, and trust and believe that's where humans learned that shit from. Chimpanzees be going at it, man. It's crazy and it's so like, ugh, it's so raunchy. But yeah, that's how humans look to aliens, I'm sure. And the chimpanzees, they be like, they be screaming and stuff. And they're very the men be getting it on with the men, the women be getting it on with the women. Like they're freaks, man. Telling you, pull up one of them videos. You, it's going to look like it's a bunch of humans with furry suits on, getting it on. Oh yeah, I heard about dolphins. Yes, that's weird how they're freaky like that. I heard like stories where like dolphins try to molest people and stuff. I'm just like, hell no. But I'm just so glad I'm evolving as a human being because I don't want to be reduced to like a person that, just always wants to get off. Because I'm like, come on, there's so much more to life than that. And to ruin your career or to ruin your whole life just because you got to get off, like, that's crazy to me. But people do it all the time. Like all these stories about these teachers having sex with their students, like all because you want to get off. Like but I think it's more than getting off. It's like they want the attention. It's like some narcissistic shit with the teachers and the students. But it also just comes down to like you gotta get off by any means necessary. So you gonna risk your livelihood, you gonna risk your freedom just to have a few minutes of pleasure. That's crazy to me. Alexander, I got you beat. I've been celibate for 9 years now, and it feels so good. And like I said, I can see clearly now about how this whole thing goes down. And I'm just like, part of the reason why shit is so crazy is because we are regressing as humans. Collectively, that is. We're regressing into chimps. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to be part of that chimp squad like that. Like these people like that be having these orgies and stuff, sex clubs, going to Burning Man, being in the orgy tent. You doing that chimp shit. It's time to rise above it. All right, moving on. Okay. All right, where are we at? Okay, just looking at this man's face, it made me think of what did I say I was thinking about? Oh, that Sinners movie. But no, he kind of reminds me of the dude that played in Get Out, the guy with the hat. Oh, it's 7:15. Oh no. Hello. I'm basically just getting started. I didn't even get into the Synastry yet. Let me I'm thinking probably another 30 minutes I'll be done. But thank you. All right. I told my daughter to call me when it got to 7:15 because I was like, I'm not trying to be on the live stream too long tonight because I gotta wake up early. And here she go calling me, and I'm like, shit, I didn't even get into the synastry yet. Okay, but these two, they don't even look like they belong together. DS Isaac, why they look different every time, right? Yes, I definitely believe he was on some covert narcissist. He definitely sociopathic, especially with that Sun Square Uranus. But they do look different. Not really her. Well, even her in some cases. I'm just like, and I'm not trying to make light of this story. I'm really not. But yes, Synastry, age difference matters. So, like this right here. So, his South Node is conjoined to Nancy's Pluto. This was basically the underlying reason why she ended up dead. It represents a past life connection. South Node relationships are often problematic. Not all of them, but a lot of them are going to require a remittance of karmic debt that was incurred in a past life together. Karmic debt involving control, influence, dependence, jealousy, and hate. Because we're talking about Scorpio. Made it easy for Steve to murder Nancy. And they might have had some bad blood from a past life. And maybe the whole reason why they came together in this lifetime was for him to get paybacks. And sometimes I do believe that's how it works in this life. I mean, think about it. What other reasoning do we have for why bad things happen to good people? Now, I'm not saying she was a saint, but I definitely don't believe that whatever she said or did deserved for her to be murdered by her husband. So what could she have possibly did to warrant that type of treatment from her husband? When situations like this occur, and especially when you see that one person's Pluto is conjoined to the other person's South Node in Scorpio, then you have to kind of like think about, wow, did they have some past life beef? And basically, they were brought back together in this lifetime, and he basically sought retribution. Oh, I'm on the cherry Coke now. I got the Coke habit, Aaron, not the root beer. The root beer sometimes is a little too much on the sweet end. So sometimes I have to just switch it up and do my cherry Coke. So I've been on the cherry Coke vibe for, I'll say, the past year, maybe even longer than a year at this point. Because it took this one situation where I had some Barks root beer and one of them was flat, I think, when I opened it. And when stuff like that happens, I have to be like, okay, I gotta leave that alone for a minute. So I had to segue over to Cherry Coke, and Cherry Coke has a stronger carbonation, so it works for me. But I'm not gonna totally abandon my Barks root beer. But this conjunction made it easy for Steve to murder Nancy, to think about murder, to fantasize about murder, to basically plot murder. It made it easy for him to hate her. It made it even easy for him to operate undercover because that South Node in Scorpio can represent someone operating undercover. It's also just pointing to sex, period. So the sex theme is strong. And then with her Pluto conjoined to that South Node in Scorpio, that's like him being forced to have sex, even though he's not attracted to her, even though he'd rather have a dick in his mouth. See, I'm trying not to be funny. I'm trying not to make jokes, but I couldn't help it. Okay. I think you have to laugh to keep from crying or to keep from tearing shit up. Sometimes you just gotta, make jokes. But yeah, and I could even deal with where she exposed his sexual kinks or she exposed his sexual proclivities, maybe not to the public, but maybe when they were behind closed doors and said, I know you like to get bent over. I know you like a long, stiff one up the ass. Now, why don't you just come out and tell me? Because I already know. I already saw that OnlyFans page that you had up. Yeah, dick on his breath 24/7. I mean, she couldn't deny it. So imagine this dude, he trying to be undercover for years. She's playing the role as if she don't know what's going on. But after a while, when you get older, you stop faking the funk. You start being more real. And she just calls him out one day and she's like, look, I already know you like men. And that's okay. I could deal with that. She seemed like the type of chick that could deal with that, especially with that Sun conjoined to her Mars and Sun conjoined to Venus. She's like, okay, we can all get along. I'll look the other way while you had your little playmates or whatever like that. Just don't bring me home no diseases or whatever. Now, I don't think she had that kind of conversation with him, but I believe she knew what was up, especially with her Pluto on his South Node like that. And then Stephen's Pluto in Scorpio forming a dissociative square with Nancy's moon, perhaps. And I do believe that was going on. So basically, this is Steve killing Nancy, and it represents Steve being jealous of Nancy's success, and it represents his hatred and resentment towards her. Stephen's Chiron in Gemini squaring Nancy's Venus, Sun, and Mars in Virgo echoes his natal square and activates the triggering effect on his Chiron of his Chiron. This square is brought into his T square aspect pattern. So this is a perfect example why I say age difference matters, because getting with him His Chiron is being triggered by her Venus, Sun, and Mars in Virgo, just like how he has Sun square Chiron in his natal chart. So basically, she stepped into the role of this Virgo energy and it triggered a negative response from him, an extreme response, that is. So this can be representative of verbal and physical wounding. Nancy's complaints, criticisms, and fault finding and nitpicking created mental turmoil within Steve. And honestly, looking at Nancy, I wouldn't be surprised if she was very fault finding. She was very much of a nitpicker. And with Virgo, Virgo would rather be miserable with you than be happy without you. That's once they get attached to you. That's once they get used to being in this routine. Because Virgo, again, it's all about routine. It's all about being integrated into your life, which is one of the reasons why Virgo will have a hard time with during the breakup and can often become a stalker or do what this guy did and basically just off her, because to have their routine disrupted is almost like death. It takes a while for them to have to acclimate to a new routine. So that is another issue that comes with that as well. But a lot of mental turmoil is within him, where her complaints, criticisms, fault finding, and nitpicking. But like I said, she could have been very unhappy in this marriage, but there's a high chance she would have never have left him. And there's a high chance that he didn't want to leave her because, again, they've both become accustomed to being in this routine, being integrated into each other's life, which is that Virgo. Steve's Chiron and Gemini opposing Nancy's Saturn and Sagittarius. So again, this just shows that her Venus, Sun, and Mars are brought into this T square that he had. Nancy's Saturn joins Stephen's Uranus in this opposition and becomes part of the T square aspect pattern in Stephen's chart. So again, she steps into that role and basically activates that T square in his chart. Stephen's Sun in Virgo squaring Nancy's Saturn in Sagittarius. This echoes the square in Nancy's chart. Basically, realization of challenges with this square, especially where men are concerned. Like the fact that she got with a Virgo, she basically sealed her fate. But she didn't know. How could she have possibly known unless she knew astrology, right? And then even when you know astrology, you still may poo-poo these aspects and be like, "Oh, it's not going to be that bad. Oh, I could deal with a man where my Saturn squaring his sun. That could just mean that I'm going to be in control. I'm going to be controlling him." But she didn't really bank on how bad it could get. This is why women, you got to be careful about getting with these submissive men where, he's allowing you to be in control. Because at the end of the day, like I said, when I first started this live stream, it might be an act. He might be acting like he has it together, that he could be submissive, that he could be this willful servant and this helpmate towards you. But one day he might snap. So this can show issues with respect and control, shutting him down or out, walking away in the middle of a disagreement. So this square right here with Nancy, Saturn, and Sagittarius squaring Stephen's Sun, this is where she probably shut him down a lot of times when he wanted to sit there and argue with her, or he wanted to get his point across. Oh, he's Jamaican. Interesting. He wanted to, and she's Haitian, and wanted to get his point across. Saturn acts as a door being slammed in your face, or Saturn can act as a big stop sign, or where you just shut the person down. And I'm saying walking away because her Saturn's in Sagittarius, because that's how Sagittarius gets down. But Sagittarius also rules walking. So I'm just picturing this like he wants to sit there and argue, and she's like, "I don't got time for this. I got bigger fish to fry. which is the epitome of this square, like that type of conversation that this square can produce, especially with Saturn ruling time, where she's like, I don't got time for this. I don't got time for your petty beefs, pettiness, that's Virgo. And she just walks away from him. And he's like, don't walk away from me while I'm speaking and stuff like that. So again, think about this square. He feels like he can never get through to her. So what does he do? He just neutralizes her while she sleep. Because like I said, I think if she was awake and he had her at gunpoint, she probably would have been able to shut him down. She probably would have said, you're too much of a coward to shoot me. And he probably would have listened and put the gun down. So he had to do it while she was asleep so that he wouldn't hear her mouth and it wouldn't change his mind or he wouldn't back down. And you see how he went to sleep afterwards. Melanin said, not gonna lie, this live stream just helped me learn about the dark side of Virgos. No offense to Virgos, I do love them. And yes, Virgos have some wonderful traits. They do, like all the signs. But then on the dark side, it could be one of the worst. Now, this can also play out as her denigrating, degrading, and belittling him in a blatant way and out in the open. So you know how sometimes situations can be like they're at a dinner party and she's the one, holding her own in a conversation. He basically interjects and then she basically dismisses what he says and they all laugh and stuff. And he feels like the little man in the corner. He feels like the little kid that, is being laughed at by the adults because he just don't know any better. And again, I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to, provide a rationale as to why it came to this point where he felt like he had to kill her. He felt like he had to take her out, especially while she was asleep. I think even this man was afraid of her because Saturn can represent fear. So when someone's Saturn is squaring your sun, you very well could be fearful of them. And she was from Haiti. You never know. She could have put some roots on his ass too. And sometimes when you do magic on somebody, when you cast spells, it can cause them to go crazy. I got to be conscious of the time. Also, being Nancy's helpmate or personal assistant wasn't good enough. So that square could just show that she had high expectations that he always didn't meet, or most of the time he didn't meet. Also, this can show that he felt small and insignificant next to her due to her career as a politician. So again, just imagine they're having like dinner party and he is basically just her, trophy Pete. Well, I can't call him a trophy Pete, but you know what I mean. He's her husband, helpmate, personal assistant, and he always has to play second fiddle because she's the one getting all the clout, she's getting all the attention, she's telling everybody she's about to run for Congress, and he can't stand it. And then to add insult to injury, he's been living a lie most of his life. He really wants to be with men, but he's with Nancy for material reasons and for his reputation, and it's just eating him up inside. Stephen's Venus in Leo square Nancy's Pluto in Scorpio. This is a nasty square right here. This represents Stephen's need for narcissistic supply not being met by Nancy. This is why this square could be particularly challenging, more so for Leo than Scorpio, because with Leo, Leo wants the attention, but this Scorpio is like, yeah, I'm not going to give you all of the attention. I'm not going to give you my undivided attention. I got other things going on. You see? So that Pluto and Scorpio is representing her obligations to other people, other things she got going on. And with his Venus and Leo, his need for narcissistic supply, his need for attention in this relationship is not being met. She's not making him feel like the star. She's not making him feel like the top dog. He couldn't be the center of attention in this marriage. So that was another problem. He didn't feel loved, adored, or admired. Well, it's not easy to feel loved, adored, and admired when you're a screw up. I believe he was one of those Virgo screw ups. There's one side of Virgo that's the perfectionist. The other side of the Virgo spectrum is to be a total screw up. Nancy probably started to be disgusted by him because when you see a square involving Pluto, especially when Pluto's in Scorpio like that, that's like you being disgusted by someone. Also, with this square, Stephen may have felt like he had little power in terms of decision making. She might have been canceling his decision making. She might have, he might have said, oh, let's invest in this stock or whatever. I'm saying investments because Leo. And she probably would be like, man, you crazy. I'm not investing in that crypto shit. Or whatever. And, next thing you know, he feels like he doesn't have any choice in the matter. He feels disempowered when it comes to decision making. Can point to a lack of sexual gratification on Nancy's part, where she has to use her toy every night. Stephen's Jupiter in Aquarius squared Nancy's Pluto in Scorpio. This echoes the square in Stephen's natal chart. It can point to a lack of sexual gratification on Nancy's part due to Stephen being gay or just indifferent towards her sexual needs. Nancy probably hated his friends. Perhaps certain trips he took with friends aroused her suspicions. So if he went to college, he might have his little fraternity brothers, and they might get together and have, a little soiree, and who knows what goes on with them little meetups and stuff, especially like with some of those fraternities I've heard. But anyway, that Jupiter in Aquarius can represent times he traveled with friends or, just got together with friends for a good time. And that made Nancy suspicious with the Jupiter in Aquarius squaring her Pluto in Scorpio. Also, this can represent severed ties and where a close bond between the two of them was lacking despite them being married. Also, he could not be liberated in this marriage. That's a typo. I meant to put not. So he could not be liberated in this marriage. Now, Stephen's Neptune in Capricorn is squaring Nancy's North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra. And this echoes the square in Nancy's chart. So, again, this solidifies what I say about age difference matters. If she would have married someone who was like 5 years her senior or junior, this square wouldn't be existing in the synastry, but because they were born 2 years apart, Neptune is still close enough to form a square with her North Node and South Node in Libra. So abandonment issues coming from Stephen are triggered when Nancy received individual recognition. Stephen was never fully committed to Nancy. And remember, I said because she has this square in her natal chart, or this T square, where her Neptune is squaring her nodes. Remember, I said that basically meant that there was a high chance she would never be in a traditional marriage. There would always be something wrong with the marriage, or there would be some type of sacrifice that has to be made dealing with that marriage. So he comes along, and with his Neptune squaring her nodes, just like in her natal chart, he's fulfilling that issue with her not being able to have a fulfilling traditional marriage. And with this, I'm looking at this where he was never fully committed to Nancy. This square makes it damn near impossible for him to be committed. Most likely, he felt trapped in this marriage. Also, this represents Stephen's secrets that are tied to his reputation. So, him having to maintain secrets to maintain or preserve his reputation. And in this case, it could be to preserve his reputation as a straight man. Also can represent a plea deal that he enters now that he's caught. And then Stephen's Pluto and Scorpio and quincunx to Nancy's North Node in Aries. The more clout her name receives, so her name being represented by that North Node in Aries. So the more clout her name receives, the more Stephen becomes jealous and hateful. So it's like this back and forth type of thing. That's what the quincunx can produce. He probably even resented that she retained her maiden name which was Mateer, while taking on his last name. So her name was Nancy Mateer Bowen. So she maintained her maiden name, which is so important for an Aries North Node because in this lifetime, you do need to focus on yourself and you need to maintain a large amount of your individuality, which she did try to do. But you saw because his Neptune is squaring her North Node and South Node, her being too much of her own individual, especially being successful, as an individual, it was too much for him to bear. And then coupled with the fact that he's living a lie and she's basically calling him out on it. So this is a perfect example of what I mean about her last name. So it says, thousands of mourners gathered Friday to lay to rest Coral Springs Vice Mayor Nancy Mateer. They didn't even mention Bowen. They just said Nancy Mateer. So I wouldn't be surprised throughout her career they would call her Nancy Mateer a lot and they would drop that Bowen, maybe just off of, force of habit. But again, that's like sticking the knife in his back and twisting it. This is only for somebody that has this narcissistic um, personality disorder, which I believe he does. So the mere act of her maintaining that maiden name, I believe that's represented by this quincunx right here, this Pluto and Scorpio, quincunx Nancy's North Node and Aries. There's a natural quincunx that exists between these two signs. And one of the reasons for that is Scorpio is the sign of being bonded to others, collaborating with others. It can even deal with like a mob, like groups of people. More so, though, like a force to be reckoned with when we're talking about groups. You know, the whole saying there's power in numbers, but then the Aries side, that's the one individual. So imagine one individual going up against a mob. That's how, like, that quincunx can play out. Now, in his case, the mob was inside his head. It was a bunch of demons. Now, it can make it hard to fully break ties. So this quincunx can make it hard to know when it's finally over because that Aries part will give somebody another chance or it can act as a renewal. Pluto in Scorpio will also produce this regenerative effect. So, on one hand, Pluto and Scorpio might want to call it quits and bring an end to this suffering or this ordeal. But then with Nancy's North Node in Aries, that's her saying, it could be her saying, well, let's try again. We can, we can try anew. It's a new day. We can do this again. And then he agrees and then they get back into it and now he threatens to leave or she basically says I just want to be by myself and then that triggers his Pluto and Scorpio and be like if I can't have you no one else will or whatever like that. I wouldn't even be surprised if he threatened her on a number of occasions before he actually went through with it. So this quincunx was life threatening for Nancy, not right away, but with the quincunx, it could be a chronic situation that builds over time. It's like a rubber band that is stretched to the limit. Can represent her discovery of Stephen's true sexual proclivities and his subsequent murder of her. So again, I wouldn't be surprised him saying I couldn't take it anymore was that number one, he was tired of being in the submissive position. He was tired of being under her control. And then when she would call him out on him being on the down low, because I believe she was the type of person that would have been with him regardless, even though she knew. Because like I said, when it comes to Virgo, Virgo will rather be miserable with you than be happy without you. That's when you're operating on the dark side of Virgo. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about healthy Virgos. And remember, I think she was a little touched too with that Mercury square Chiron. She also had Mercury square Uranus. So in her mind, she could probably rationalize why she was probably like, I invested so much in this dude. In her saying I invested so much in this dude can be represented by his Venus and Leo. I invested in so much in this dude. I'm not going to give him up. At the end of the day, he could still be useful to me. I'm not going to throw away all these years of marriage. I'm not going to put myself out there and face scrutiny, public scrutiny, because I'm a public figure and I'm headed for Congress. These politicians, they always got to have a spouse. That makes them look more legitimate. It makes them look more stable. So in her mind, I don't think she ever would have got divorced, even if he was sucking 10 dicks a night. As long as he don't bring her nothing home, as long as it's not in her face like that, I think she would have still tried to make it work. And that's, again, he had to take her out because she had this sway over him, so he had to take her out while she was asleep, because I think she would have been able to talk him out of killing her. That's how much power she had over this fool. All right, so that's the Bowens. Now, real quick, and I might do a part two with this live stream because I do gotta go soon. But here's this other couple. This is a very strange story right here. And what's weird is they kind of look alike in this picture. Like, what is going on here? Um, and they're from Virginia, I think. Maybe they're from Baltimore. No, let me stop. I was about to say, let me stop. Okay, but is it me or they look kind of look alike? I know some married people do end up kind of looking alike, but yeah, they look like they could be cousins. Roma said it would be nice if they stopped using couples as a sign of stability and social status behind closed doors. So many of them are miserable. That is true. Melanin said, "Not gonna lie, I think there's a lot of internalized homophobia as well since you mentioned the down low and her ex-husband." Yeah, this was a crazy story. This really touched me when I learned about it. So this was a prominent dentist, the woman that is. She had her own practice and she was thriving. But the only problem is she was going through a divorce with this piece of shit right here. And he killed her and then he killed himself. So let me just read about this story really quick. So, Annandale, Virginia. Former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. So, this is another story about a politician. What is up with these politicians lately? So, former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, a rising star in the Democratic Party, until sexual assault allegations ruined his political fortunes, killed his estranged wife, and then himself weeks before a judge's deadline to move out of their family home. According to police and court records, officers called to the home in the Washington, D.C. suburb of Annandale early Thursday found the bodies of Fairfax, 47, and his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, 49. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis said. Justin Fairfax fatally shot his wife, a successful dentist, in the basement before going to an upstairs bedroom and killing himself, Davis said. Their son called 911. One of Justin Fairfax's longtime friends told the Associated Press that he became increasingly despondent after his wife filed for divorce last year. The judge overseeing the divorce recently wrote that his isolation, drinking, and a lack of participation in family life are manifestations of what seems to be a sense of fatalism and hopelessness. Serena Fairfax said in court filings that she and her husband separated nearly 2 years ago, but they were still living in the same house with their two teenage children who were both home when the deaths occurred, Davis said. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the same family tree from a past life. And that can explain why they have a slight resemblance to each other. Because when you hear situations like that, they separated nearly 2 years ago, but they were still living in the same house. That's like some soul tie shit, like where they have a hard time separating. Now, in a March 30th order, The judge told Justin Fairfax to move out by the end of April, writing, it is clear tensions in the Fairfax home have been extremely high for an extended period of time. The judge said in court documents that Justin Fairfax's mental and emotional health suffered after two setbacks: his unsuccessful 2013 campaign for the Democratic nomination for Attorney General and the 2019 sexual assault scandal. After both, he drank heavily and withdrew from his family. But while it took about a month to recover from the first setback, he never bounced back from the second. Serena Fairfax testified during the divorce proceedings that her husband drank daily and that his living space was littered with empty wine bottles and piles of dirty laundry. See, he's another example of how a man is able to fake the funk for many years and then they start to unravel. Like you peel back a couple of layers and you start to see the nutcase for what he really is. All it takes is a few crises for him to totally unravel. Now, he bought a handgun in 2022 with money intended for horseback riding lessons for their children, court records showed. Nelson said she and other friends repeatedly asked Fairfax to seek help. She urged him to move out, but believes he wasn't able to do so financially. Wasn't able to do so financially. That's no excuse. Get out. I don't care if you gotta live on the street. That's how I had to do one of my exes. I used to, on my way to work, I used to pass by the bus stop and he'd be sitting at the bus stop after sleeping at the bus stop overnight, and I would just beat my horn, beep, beep. Because after a while, it shouldn't matter if the person is going to be homeless. That's not your problem. So she said, I was concerned as we were close friends, fraternity brothers, family members. Nelson said there were talks of suicidal thoughts. Filings show that Justin Fairfax had financial challenges following the sexual assault allegations, which prompted his resignation as a partner at the prestigious law firm. See, he thought being a politician, he was going to, it was a free for all. And that is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius rules politicians and politics, and it also rules free for alls. So a lot of these politicians, they get into these office positions and they think it's going to be a free for all. So, and that's why it hit him so hard. He was put on a pedestal and then he gets snatched down and he can't handle it. So the IRS filed a lien against the couple for more than 91,000 in unpaid taxes that was resolved in 2021. And I believe, because I looked at the transits for him, I think Uranus was on his moon in Taurus, if I'm not mistaken. And that could deal with financial upheaval, financial upset, and him having to change his living situation. And he wasn't trying to go out like that. And you know how Taurus is. Taurus don't want to change. Now, Nelson said Fairfax was unemployable after the scandal and tried to rebuild his legal career, but with a few successes. Davis, the police chief, said Justin Fairfax was recently served with paperwork telling him when next to appear in court. He said officers went to the family's home in January after Justin Fairfax alleged that his wife had assaulted him. But cameras she had set up around the home showed the alleged assault never occurred. So here's her chart. The main takeaway with her is she has Mars square Uranus. And Mars square Uranus can produce a man that is cuckoo, unhinged, unpredictable, unstable, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of character. Somebody that will dissociate, like have like dissociative personality disorder, especially if they maybe take certain substances. And she said that he was drinking all the time. Here's that moon in Taurus. And so no, it wasn't Uranus on that moon. What was it? It was something. I gotta look at those transits again. Wait a minute. Is it him? Wait a minute. Hold on. Oops. I'm going backwards. All right. She also had Mercury in a very wide conjunction with Mars, but that's enough to produce a man that can be very, like, what's the word? Again, kind of unpredictable, flighty, will kind of fly off the handle, can be very unreasonable. But with her, that can make her be very vocal, where she's not going to hold back on what needs to be said. Now, that moon in Taurus could have her very accustomed to living a certain type of lifestyle. And that is a big reason why she kept living with this dude. And she was very concerned about him being broke or whatever like that. Now, her moon is squaring Mercury, which can cause her to basically be illogical in her decision making, irrational decision making. That Mercury in Aquarius, that could represent her intuition popping off. So her intuition was probably popping off, but because she got that moon in Taurus, she was trying to just keep things the way they were. She didn't want to upset her household too much. And then what else? Mars. So that's a T square she got, and Mars square Uranus, Mars opposing Saturn. And then here's his chart. Oh, let me go back to just her sun. Her sun in Pisces, while it's not afflicted, we still have to keep in mind the dark side of Pisces, because Justin was representing that dark side of Pisces. Because again, remember, the sun is representing her husband. So she said he was drinking all day, bottles everywhere, just looking disheveled, acting hopeless, just playing the victim role too, because he lied and said that she hit him and she really didn't. And she had cameras to prove it. The whole cameras, that's that Pisces sun. But then also the secrets. Him basically having these sexual assault allegations, him being a creep, him humiliating her with this news coming out. And then her Juno was at the 28th degree of Scorpio, which can deal with a partner who's cheating all the time. And it can also play out as a partner who threatens your life or who actually kills you. But the main takeaway is that Mars square Uranus, her attracting a man that is just unhinged, that could produce a deviant personality as well. And then when I saw that he had that South Node in Pisces, I was like, that makes so much sense. So I would just tell women, be careful of getting with men who have Pisces South Nodes, because they're some of the most um, fragile, I'll say. That's a good way to put it. Because the problem with these men, and the reason why they're acting out like this, is because their egos are fragile. That is the bottom line. They have fragile egos, and they're also a lot of times hiding stuff. So when they get exposed, they want to just kill the person exposing them. But it was something else with him too. Let me see. Sun conjunct Mars, that can make for an egomaniac and someone who's very focused on sex. And he has Mars square Uranus too. So they both have Mars square Uranus. Talk about doubling up. But yeah, so this just confirms that he basically is everything that her square could be, in terms of being totally unhinged, just unreasonable, disruptive, unpredictable, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of energy, unstable personality, and sociopathic. Remember the other dude, what was his name? Stephen Bowen, he had Sun square Uranus. This dude got Mars square Uranus. Both of those can be potentially sociopathic aspects, because with Uranus, It can produce, like I was saying with Aquarius, it can produce that indifference, that total apathy. Like you look at the person like they're not even human anymore. They might as well just be a piece of furniture. You said who reported him? I don't know. That's a good question. Well, they said two women came forward when he was about to take like a governor's position. It was like he was about to be like the assistant governor or something, and two women came out and they basically said that he had assaulted them. And then Venus square Pluto. That's a classic murder aspect. And that could just show that he was resentful towards her, especially because of her career. Look, his Venus is in Capricorn. That's representing his wife Serena being a dentist, with Capricorn representing dentist. But that could just show that, yeah, it was one of those situations where I'm not going to allow you to be successful without me. Now that we're getting divorced, you're going to have to die because I can't possibly conceive of you carrying on with your life without me. And you see, Virgo is coming into play even in this situation with his Saturn and Virgo conjoined to that North Node. But that Venus square Pluto says it all. First, it starts off as hate and resentment, and then it comes down to murder. So, again, I made this video just to reiterate what I said in those videos that I made about the red flags and deal breakers. If you have a potential mate and you see that they have certain squares or even conjunctions in their chart that I spoke of before, like Sun square Chiron, Sun square Pluto, Mars square Uranus, Mars square Neptune, Sun square Uranus, be careful because a lot of times these people can play the role like they're normal, but they're not normal. They might be wearing a human skin suit, but they're barely human on the inside. And it might take years before you actually see this person for who they really are. But why even put yourself through this trouble if you can prevent it by looking at their chart ahead of time and saying, no, I'm not going to even go that route. I'm not even going to put my feet into those deadly waters because I know how these aspects can play out. And trust and believe again, because we're living in these modern days and times, these aspects are going to usually play out in the worst way. So you have to assume that this person is unevolved and they're going to basically play out, they're going to live out those aspects in the worst way. Most people are unevolved. Most people lack self awareness. So you always have to remember that when you're looking at someone's chart because they can have these squares in their chart, they can have oppositions, quincunx, what have you. You can even tell them, look, you got this in your chart, so you got to, try to avoid doing this, or you could try to be a better person. They're so conditioned by those aspects. They're operating on default, meaning they're just obeying what the planets are basically saying in the chart. They're not even really thinking things through. They're not self aware. They're not reflective. People like that, they're going to be on default mode when it comes to their chart. So when bad situations happen or when they're in a crisis, that's when you'll usually see them break. Like this dude Stephen Bowen and this other dude Justin Fairfax, because they got these unhinged aspects that point to that. And again, on a normal day, they can act like they're normal. But when you put their feet to the fire, that's when you're going to see the dysfunction come out. And I'm sure both of these women saw these red flags early on, but because of what's in their chart, namely that earth energy, they basically was like, oh, I can deal with this. I'd rather be with this person and be miserable than be alone and be happy. And that's another key takeaway. Don't be afraid to be alone. Yeah, it can be lonely sometimes, but the peace is invaluable. The peace and the serenity and solitude that you get when you're single, it's invaluable compared to being in a relationship where it's these ups and downs, or even when you and your partner are bickering all the time. I never like those type of relationships where the people claim they love each other, but they're constantly bickering back and forth. To me, that's not a sign of a healthy relationship. Well, at least we're communicating. Nah, because that bickering can turn to, it can escalate at some point. I really do believe that there's some successful marriages out there and successful relationships, but I believe at this point they're kind of like unicorns. It's becoming more and more rare to find yourself in that right relationship where you and your partner really belong together and y'all have that mutual respect and then mutual admiration and love and all that type of stuff. Nowadays, you really got to question people's motives for even wanting to be with you. So I say all that to say be safe out there. Check out a person's chart before you decide to get deep with them, get in deep with them. I'm always here if you ever want me to, do a reading about them. It doesn't even have to be a full-blown synastry. You could just purchase a phone reading and I can give you the tea on how a person is set up psychologically, even physically. So be smart and don't allow your genitals to cloud your logic. Don't allow a cute face or a nice ass to cloud your logic. It's not worth it, as these stories that have recently come out show you. Even like that whole power couple thing. Thanks so much, Roma. Thank you for your super chat. And thanks for telling everybody to get a reading. And thank you, Tara, for posting the link to my website. But yeah, in these days and times, like I said, you got to adjust for inflation because of the way the society we live in, even with entertainment. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that entertainment has really affected how people treat each other, but it does. Even just look at like reality TV. Bad Girls Club, for one. I think a lot of these young chicks, the ratchet ones that is, they take notes from like shows like Bad Girls Club and the Real Housewives and stuff, and they think that's how they're supposed to operate. They think that's how they're supposed to behave in public. They think when you go out, you're supposed to be dressed in a way where your cleavage is all out or where your ass is showing and all this type of stuff. The men, they're becoming ultra violent, not all of them, but a lot of them. And a lot of that's doing with the music, the video games, the movies. You don't think this has an effect upon people? Of course it does. So you got to be smart. You got to really try to also protect your brain, protect your mind from certain things that are here to poison you. Oh, Baddies on Zeus Network. I heard about that show too. Yeah. And the evils that be, they want us to be fighting amongst each other. They want us to kill each other off and all this type of stuff. Why give in to what they want? But yeah, with that, I think I'm gonna say good night. I might do a part two where I talk about a couple of other stories, like the guy that killed all those children. I might get deeper into this story with Serena Fairfax because I know I only, scratched the surface of it. Tara said, I can't stand those shows just glorifying trashy women. I know, it's disgusting. Yeah, I might mention this David character as well. It's funny, nobody knew who this David dude was until he killed somebody. But I guess that's the new trend. Get famous for killing somebody, get rich or die trying, right? Is that what they say? Is that what 50 Cent said? Yeah, y'all stay safe. I hope that that whole ceasefire in the Middle East, I hope it continues to be a ceasefire. But who knows with this person in office? He is a straight up clown. But yeah, it's only so much we can do about that. But I just want everybody to have a good night. And hopefully I'll be back soon. Like I said, I'm working on Kawaii Honey sponsored video and it's going to be a doozy. And yeah, the research alone got me a little overwhelmed, but y'all see what I mean when I post it. But I should have that done sometime next week. So stay tuned for that. And thank you everybody for tuning in with me and or tuning in to watch this live stream. And if you would like a reading, you could go to my website. The link is in the description section. Tara also posted the link. Thank you so much, Tara. And yeah, everybody have a good night. I'll be back soon. Peace.